And we are live. We are live, Lyrical Ones. This is episode, what is this? 32? I think this is 32.
Twism.
32. Yes. Trade Twism. Man, took it back. Threw me way off. I didn't even know. I don't even know how to respond anymore. Gotta get my shack on. So right now, right, this is, as you can see, it's an army of two, right? It's not to say that we out to kill, it's just to say that we out to build.
Remember
And
that?
man, just saying. So, what we doing right now is we're gonna keep things moving forward into the future. So, Affluent, how we doing tonight?
Doing excellent. Uh, on some consumerism stuff, I just bought my first TV in like 18 years. Um, but I bought it for my mother, so that was dope. And now she can watch uh, the trial, the pending impeachment trial in HD. Because I'm juiced about that. And she had this she had this box. I'm like, Mama, what is this box? She's like, that's my DVD player. It's like, oh, because it's the same size as the cable box. So I was like, what is that? She's like, it's my DVD player. Ma, you don't need DVDs no more. It's like this is the Netflix button. This is the Prime Video button. Um, like this is how you get back to your channels. Like you don't need that. She's like, you save space. But she's like, all right. She's like, what if they don't have Claudine? It's like, okay, fine.
Shout out to your mama for
So,
being a real one, because that is
for,
necessary. Okay, she
right,
ain't got
just
to.
like they not gonna have my hits. They gonna
I
have like
mean,
the ones that matter.
they gonna
Like
have
we have
expiration dates. That's what they gonna have. They gonna have expiration dates. That's what they gonna have for
that's
you. Okay,
that's true.
all
In
the
the
all the
meantime, in between time,
exactly. We gonna have so
I
many
need
disappointed people over the office. Guess
right,
what? Your mama, she could go to the Goodwill and get the office right now. Every season at Goodwill, it's gonna be like $5 a box set. You can't
right,
go wrong with that. Don't
right.
let it be a sale. You get every box set for $2. Shout out to the Goodwill for hooking it up, if they still
Yeah,
hooking it up. But I mean, that's what's up, man. Like being able to buy your mama TV is a special thing because again, at least for what I think of is like being young and having the being the one given the gift, right? Like always like you gonna give it to me. And now you had an opportunity to be able to repay it, to be like, I'm gonna get you something. And now at a time like this where there's gonna be so much nuance and entertainment to watch in these faces at this trial, because it's like the revelation or the reveal of we've been telling y'all, and now we can't, as we start to investigate. And again, this is all allegedly there are political leaders, public servants who were involved in the organizing of January 6th, the attempted takeover by the three losing parties of white supremacy. The three losing parties, right? We have the Nazis, the Confederates, and Trump 2020. Three losing parts of white supremacy, the losers, right? The losers circle. We'll call them the losers trinity from now on. The losers trinity. The losers
trio.
trinity. Yeah, the trio. The losers trio tried to take over the government, right? And now we're hearing all these reports and all these details coming out allegedly that our leaders, our public servants, our tax paying, like they're paid by our tax dollars, were instrumental in creating this chaos. And here we are. It ain't looking too good for the trio of losers, the
Nah,
losers trio. So
it ain't looking good at all. Like it's coming out that they probably planned it for a minute, not some overnight stuff, and then they had to get some the Capitol Police complicit, had to do some background checks and give people some some uh some maps on where to go and how to get where they needed to be, and like the coverage was curated also, and
yeah,
so again, right, it's like they thought it wasn't gonna be no problem because they got invited. but the guy who invited them is on his way out, and he ain't never really care about them anyway.
I
And
mean,
so
he was
he
renting. He
just,
didn't own it.
yeah, he's borrowing it
He
because
was like,
he
"Hey,
wasn't because
I gotta."
he wasn't even renting it. He wasn't paying
It
nothing
was
to
somebody
be
else's
there.
name. He was like, "Hey, I got an Airbnb. It ain't mine, but I got
We
the keys."
we subletted it to him.
So we about to turn up, y'all. Come on in. Let's go get up in this thing one time, and we're gonna set it off. You feel me? We're gonna hit it one. Get the podiums. Hey, get everything you can. Hey, AOC shoes. Let's take all their shoes. Like you took this woman's shoes. Y'all, wow.
Oh,
Y'all wilding. Like,
it's folks
come
because
on.
some reps who now testing positive because folks is out there maskless. Some of the
Oh
reps,
man,
is tested positive for COVID-19 because folks is out there maskless, fresh off the plane, fresh off the bus, off the caravan, the convoy, from from different parts of um, these alleged states. So yeah, it's a bad look, as they say.
it definitely is a bad look. Like this is the time. This is like if it ain't one thing, it's another thing, right? Like pandemic, right? We got people being killed, being murdered by the police. Now like I was trying to drive the point home. Hopefully people were able to hear AOC say it. The Confederate flag was literally in the Capitol. That's the losing flag. That is the loser side. Those are the traitors to what we stand for.
Losing flag of a war.
Like, to me, I'm like, yo, come on. What, how, huh, but, huh? Like, think about it. If we haven't had a domestic war on this soil, right? We've been attacked, we've had tragedy, but we haven't had a war. And, you know, in taking that into consideration, to me, that's a war move, right? When you're taking a flag that represents what we fought against, and you're using that as a signal to let other people know who also fly that flag. It's one thing for it to be historical and say, okay, we're holding on to this for historical reasons, right? As lessons of what has happened to get us to this point. It's another thing when you are taking pride in something and what it stood for. Exactly. I know. You gotta, yeah.
Not on duty.
I mean, come on. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, for those like me, would I ever have a Confederate flag? I'll probably go to a museum if I really wanted to see one, right? If I wanted to see one, I would prefer to go to a museum. I don't want to sit there and be, oh, let me hold on these keepsakes of something that stood for something that was against where we're at now, right? And now, you seeing people being harassed at the airport. You seeing people get arrested at the airport.
Arrested.
It's, man, like, look, I'm doing my best to be a healing individual, but let me gloat in this moment and be happy and rejoice at y'all getting arrested. Right? I don't want that trauma for no one. I don't wish that on nobody. But you brought it on yourself. So as you accept responsibility for your actions and you are dealt the consequences, I'm going to smirk, smile, laugh at every, like I seen one where what was it? Guy just started yelling. Like he was like, "How could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? Like
Right.
what is wrong with this country?" And it's like, bruh, like they caught you slipping because you stupid. You went to break the law, right? Come on, what you thought was gonna happen? You thought what
But you
you gonna
see
take
what's but
pictures?
you see what's happening though, right? Because what the media and like the spin system is doing is making these cats scapegoats for the country who's allowed them to thrive and exist and coexist without the country ever taking accountability for slavery, for the Civil War in the first place, right? It's like when you lose a war, right, you don't get to hang around, right? Like, and it's interesting. So like when Germany lost, right, they had to like re-educate everybody, right? They had to institute a re-education program on how to see the world so that they could then thrive instead of thinking their own way, because what happened is they were manipulated, and a lot of poor people were manipulated and influenced by, a charismatic, dictator, right? And so now we come to the aftermath, a couple hundred years later, um, of a civil war, a domestic war, where the country has never took responsibility. They actually got folks, left and right, yearly, quarterly, seasonally reenacting the Civil War, where folks get to glorify and celebrate the Confederacy and celebrate the losing side. Even though they lose, they still would rather be in those shoes than to accommodate and say that they would believe in anything that's actually what the country stands for, right? So their opinion and their stance against the beliefs of the country has been allowed to thrive and exist and survive, with no checks. And they get not just from the president, but they get a streamline of play-by-play, so-called victories for them, in the news, as they watch black bodies and brown bodies be slaughtered and massacred, one by one, on a weekly basis, for the last couple years. And there's no sign of that stopping. So it was only they felt only empowered and emboldened to, like, what's the next step? Because the last time we was killing like this is what we did. And so we ain't organized enough to roll up like an army. So let's plan something and let's all show up. We got the okay to be there from the president, and really they're just scapegoats because the media is just making it all about them, and it's the media who's allowed them to be emboldened and empowered. And you got platforms like Twitter and Facebook who allow like this gloating and this evil speak and fear mongering and hate mongering to just agitate and infuriate and rile people up, into believing this is the right choice. And some of these folks is barely educated and not much critical thinkers among them. But you see, like, they're surprised that they're being treated this way, even though, like, this is what happens when you commit treason.
I mean, what's really crazy about it is the fact that, right, you brought up Germany and the re-education, and there was a need to not only like acclimate them to what the world is in that moment, but to like try and repair and restore kind of where did we lose sight of fact and truth, right? Like, where did we lose sight? And now let's rectify that and let's address it. In the United States, what happens was the United Daughters of the Confederacy decided to develop curriculum that was focused on serving the Confederacy, even though the Confederates had lost, right? So really take that into account. Like, like, that is a trip to know that the losing side was then able to dictate what the education was going to look like for themselves moving forward, because we're talking about, this is old. We talking about decades, more than a couple, right? We talking about 4 or 5 decades, maybe almost a century of work going into this education. And we're seeing it in the selected politicians who are now holding seats in Congress and the Senate, right? Like, take that into account when it comes to the House of Representatives, right? Take that into account when you're thinking of the senators, when you're thinking of the people who are, there's 3 branches of power. And the way that the game has been played is, we need to find a way to get in and start to lay the seeds and the groundwork of what we lost. And I'm speaking that from the perspective of the Confederates, right? Like people always, if you look deep enough, most people don't. Most people are like, oh, it's whatever, how that impact me. But you look, you turn a blind eye, you could go blind. And that's the thing that people don't want to accept because it's like, oh, how that impact me? Look at the prison system. How many people do you know that's been incarcerated? Look at gentrification. How many people have been impacted by the fact that maybe you can't live where you want to live, right? When something happens to you, how many times is it you got to deal with it on your own versus there's a community there to really support you? This isn't by mistake. This isn't by accident, right? This wasn't coincidental. This was intentional. This was planned out. This was orchestrated.
Right.
I like to quote somebody who I appreciate very much, Killer Mike. I was listening to Killer Mike talk to two of the people that were running for office recently in December. And it was a video, it was on like an hour, 20 minutes. And they was talking about gun reform and drug reform.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was saying, Killer Mike has said, be careful and be mindful of what you're trying to develop and change, because who's it worse for and who's it impact first, right? Worst and first. Right. It's going to be people of color. It's going to be black people. They are the worst and first. Whenever you change the law, it's going to impact them dramatically more than it impacts everybody else. It becomes an excuse to harass and persecute people of color when you create a law, right? The laws, like when we look at the 13th Amendment, what the 13th Amendment say? Slavery is abolished except as a form of punishment, right? And when you look at the numbers of who's incarcerated, how is the minority the majority of that slave labor? Because that's what it is. It's slavery. It's still slavery. Slavery didn't go away, right? They just changed what's the process, right? If you born into it looks like this, by the time your child or yourself is in third grade, they're looking at your test scores to determine whether or not they can get you on a pipeline ready for prison, right? So when we talk about this, right, this is me taking my years of experience working in the community, understanding all these different systems and how they intertwine, and now seeing them try to overthrow the government, them being the Confederates, them being the losers, right, them being the Trumpians, right? Don Teasy, my boy Donald Templeton, right? So now we sitting in this position where it's like, man, y'all really try to pull a fast one. And so now they're arresting people, and it's good to see that. But to what degree, right, do we lose sight in that moment to be like, oh, well, they got the people accountable? Nah, them is just little ants, right? That ain't the big ones. They ain't the big dogs, right? You can't lose sight of what's to come or who's on the other side. And I think that's the thing that's like right now most revealing is seeing that, yeah, I get my jollies. I ain't gonna lie, I get my ha 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 ha. But on the other end of it, it's like, okay, who else is there that's complicit or colluded or was an accomplice to this event that I don't know? Because what you see on the screen is one thing, right? As you said, right? They were selective on how they showcase these events, right? You see the same footage. Come on, you mean to tell me in a world where everybody's quick to showcase and show out and put things on their phone, we got the same 7 shots over and over again? Like it was like I've seen the same thing over and over again, knowing that in those shots I see people with their phones.
Right, 1,000 phones out there. You know, and you got 2 and 3 and 4 and 6, 7 days before people was arrested. And before people even start getting arrested, some stuff was coming up being posted. Somebody equated the way the Capitol Police behaved as the worst game of Red Rover, where one team holds hands and they ask somebody to come over and they supposed to hold on hands and not let the person through. Well, we know that didn't work with the Capitol Police, but like allowing like people who believe in the Confederacy, and then just believe in losing. Really, it's just believe in hate and believe in losing. I don't even want to like talk about them no more. Just like folks who believe in losing, like when somebody breaks through, then the other team gets a point. The team that they came from gets a point. But it's like If you can't make it through, you join that team in Red Rover. And like, what if folks were supposed to defect to the winning side and they never defected? Right? They was allowed to be their whole self, their whole criminal, evil, losing self, for 200 years. And this is what you get out of that. And yeah, it's not their fault, because some of them wasn't even in power, but some folks is in power, right, who wanted that to happen, right? It's some folks who was sitting there, on the House floor, who probably spoke that day, and they was instrumental in the insurrection occurring in the first place, right? Because they believe in losing, and they've been allowed to believe in losing for 200 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's insanity. Like, but what it does bring up, which is something we talked about before we got on here, was where is the correlating factors of toxic masculinity, and how does that show up?
Man, so that's the thing that's been tripping me out on the as I watch MSNBC or CNN, and they try to say like these guys literally, because they've been there. We see, for the most part, for the majority, right there, they're straight white men, and these straight white men, right, committed treason. They came up here and they so-called portray this sense of masculinity. And what I've been seeing on the news is people mock them for their belief in their masculinity, as correlating to how they show up in anger and in violence. And in these media feeds and in the news, I'm seeing them being mocked and then calling them soft or snowflakes or wussies. And like, it's the same thing. It's perpetuating the same toxic masculinity, whether, like, you're not more masculine for wanting organic food. You're not less masculine for wanting organic food. You're not less for complaining about it. You're not less for being sad because you're in prison. You're not less for being harassed or beaten up as you're taken to jail or handcuffed, or you're not less masculine for having your rights taken away from you.
I mean, I'm stupid, but y'all stupid today. Don't make us less. It just mean we equal, right?
Yeah, you're not. But that's the thing, is like, you're not. They're not less masculine or so-called soft because they're complaining or they're upset about how they're being treated for being stupid. And like, the toxic masculinity is just being perpetuated on both sides. Like, I'm a man because I'm violent and angry and I break windows of the Capitol building and I steal a podium. Nah, you're not more masculine for any of that. But you're not less masculine because all your rights get taken away because you did wrong. And that's the trippy thing. But it's like, it's the only way they talk about the gender is not as a problem. They're not talking about how these straight white men are the problem as a demographic of, like, complicit abusers and racial profilers and hate criminals.
Yeah,
It's not being talked about.
Call them out for what they did.
Right. Treasonous traitors and insurrectionists were mostly straight white Anglo-Saxon men. And it's wild because the one person who gets shot and killed is a white woman who's a 14-year Army vet from San Diego. And
Crazy.
Rest in peace to her. But again, like, when white women align themselves with these toxic white men, they're usually the ones that get left out and looked over as the men try to complete their agenda.
I
And
mean,
then
well said.
then they'd be surprised. Then they'd be surprised, like, hey, wait, what about my seat? We wasn't never fight. They wasn't never fighting this for you.
Yeah, you was just an accessory.
You was just there to throw the enemy off guard.
Yeah, we just threw you. We used you as a shield.
We used you as a shield. Game of
And
Thrones.
that's the coldest part about it is that like you bring up a good point because to me I'ma laugh at you even if you my people. If you my people, right? We all people,
Well,
right? I'm gonna
we
laugh at
laugh at each other.
you. Exactly, right? We gonna enjoy each other, and you know take it how you want to take it. But to me, it's not from a place of being overtly malice and facetious, right? It's from a
Nah.
point of look. You've been nan this whole time, and now you slipped and fell because you was nan too hard. You nan your way into the penitentiary. You nan your way into prison. Okay, you was throwing it in my face. Your privilege, your affluence, your power, like your ability, right? The infrastructure that was created in your behalf, right? Created for your honor, and you were throwing it in my face, and you were telling me, right? In so many ways, in so many indirect, nondescript, most obvious, and maybe passive, right? But
Mostly
you did it,
obvious.
mostly obvious. And so you sit up here and you just na. I'm a white man, na. And then next thing you know, I can't get on the plane. Hey, I can't get organic food. Now, look, right? Affluence, right? That don't make you less of a man. That just means you made a mistake and now you need to own it, right? So I'm gonna laugh because you stupid. Because I've been stupid. I done stupid things. I've been dumb. I've been stupid, dumb, done some dumb stuff. But now it's your turn. And for once, you getting caught up for it, right? Before it was like you skate on by. Because that's what happened that day, right? You had people with badges who were there to secure the premises and the literal like property. That's what they were there. And they're like, come on, let's go. And it's like, wait, what? You in on it? You in on it? Oh, okay. Right. And so you see these images of people being sprayed with mace, and it's not the same as protesters who were talking about Black lives. It's not the same at all. Totally
They
different.
even got the no look spray. Like he
No
wasn't
look.
even trying to hit him.
Yeah, like
Like
let me go 35 degrees up. Let me just launch it into the air so y'all can get it in your nostrils one time, not in your face. So I don't want to hurt you, right? And it's being reported that a lot of them are law enforcement, right? Like a lot of these people are former military servicemen and women. They are either former or current,
off
kind of
duty.
service people in the law enforcement of the United States. And even then they were selective on who they chose to carry out their brutality, right? Because they were violent with some people, right? They were imposing threats and they were creating levels of unsafety, right? And so when we look at it, right, it's a very coerced, orchestrated event that may look messy, but there's a lot of thoughtfulness that went into it. But going to what you were saying around masculinity and how, right, we want to play this game of both of these two sides, right, blue and red, Democratic, Republican. And it was at the beginning of this presidential term, I was watching this guy who's, he's known for video games, but he's very vocal about politics. And he was saying how he left the Republican Party because they had Donald Trump in the equation. Just because they had him in the equation, he was like, there's no way I can be a Republican knowing this is even a possibility. And then he got nominated and they were like, that's why I left. Right. And even then they were like, you know what? And I'm not going to vote for Hillary, but I think Hillary got it won. And they were saying before, like, this has all happened in 2016. People really don't like Hillary.
Right.
And what ended up happening? Trump got in office. He galvanized a population and a perspective of people who felt marginalized, even if they weren't. Like it's your perception is your reality. So even if it ain't the truth, it's your reality. Don't mean it's fact, but it's your reality.
Just like
And
the
I have to
Matrix.
accept that. I have to validate that by accepting it, by saying, I see you and I understand now. Because looking at what you're doing, you're creating harm, not harmony, harm, right? It's not peace, right? Your protest don't look like a protest. Your protest looks like anarchy. Your protest looks like trying to overthrow things, right? And so this idea of masculinity, and then saying, well, because I'm a Republican, I'm bad. Because I'm a Democrat, I'm good, right? Because I'm a Democrat, I get to say the things that I want to say, even though they're harming, and they're literally just what you do. But because I'm not a part of your crew, it makes it okay. I'm legitimized for my behavior because I'm a part of the winning side, or I'm a part of the side that's seen as good, right? And it's no, you're just a person who identifies with a group, and now you carrying out the behavior that we're trying to condemn and get rid of. You don't get rid of it by doing it back, right? You don't have the kid in class and say, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. How are they going to learn? You're not creating a system or an environment where they want to learn. You're creating an environment for harm. You're creating an environment where now they're like, well, why do I even want to learn from you if you're just going to berate me and belittle me and make me feel less than, right? And it's like, is there some public humiliation involved? Yes. It's rightfully earned. They earned it. But to then try and say that gives you the free for all to just, there's no restrictions, there's no boundaries, there's no limits on how we approach it and how we talk about these people. That's where I'm of a different breed, right? I don't see it the same way. I gotta extend some empathy, right? Because I have to understand, why is this happening? Where did it come from? And I'm starting to see it, right? When they deindustrialized the country, right? When they took away the factory jobs and they started that process, right? What was really going on? It was rich people trying to make money, where there kept being labor unions being sprung up because it gave people power, right? So when people wanted to make money, what did they do? They took it into foreign countries, right? So we became a foreign superpower. It wasn't so much about, I mean, we always had international influence, but it just grew exponentially, right? So now we've classed out a whole people who their whole lives depended on a factory, right? We took that away from them. There's been generations that have been harmed by poverty, right? What happens when you don't have the best taxes? You can't pay for the best teachers, right? In the Obama administration, there were so many schools that got shut down, right? But this is a much larger, more like crazy system of rich people manipulating people who don't have education or understanding of what's going on, and making them believe and invest their energy in supporting something that's not there to support them, right? There's no way I should ever hear, because they're a businessman, they should run the country. We're not a business, right? We're not a business, right? All the world's wealth right now isn't going to repair or fix anything, right? People will make the difference. Who's in power, who's going to make the decisions, the actions that you carry out is going to make the difference, right? The culture you create and cultivate is going to make the difference. But y'all want to sit up here and go and repeat the same behaviors that we find toxic or find harmful. It ain't the way. There has to be some boundaries. There has to be some limits on how we do it. Because yeah, masculinity, I mean, it becomes a problem as far as what you see it as, right? And if we're really going to look at it, then we got to look at the harm we're doing to each other, because we're still people at the end of the day. Regardless if we agree on the same things, we're still people. It's one thing for me to get on you for doing something illegal. It's another thing for me to berate you because of how you look, because of what your preference is and what you decide to eat, right? And how you decide to live your life. I can't get on you for that, but I can get on you for breaking the law. You broke the law. You're going to get yours. Because y'all been giving it to us for so long, right? The first and worst has always been the Black community, right? The first and worst. But now, just this one moment in time, people can't even get on flights. And it's like, it's crazy. Like, seeing people applaud these people, like, it's this bittersweet, like, I don't even know, like this disharmony thing, like of like dissonance but beauty. Like, it's like, oh, this is toxic, but this is so good. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't even know how to, like, I'm happy, but at the same time, I'm like, how much of the divide are we further damning ourselves, right? Like,
that's it.
You know, like we got Lacey in here talking about facts, right? On Lacey seeing us on Facebook, but it's one of those things where we gotta. I just feel like we gotta know when to stop, right? When do we stop laughing, and then when do we reach out, right? When do we stop being
listening?
For real, when do we start listening to what's going on? Because there's things that are happening. People are being hurt. People are being harmed, and we're ignoring it, and they're willing to fight for it, right? I was hearing somebody say earlier this week talking about it ain't nothing for them to spill some blood. They've been like, these people been going to war
Right.
against everybody the whole time, right? We are a country where, look, they came over, they literally wiped it out, right? They didn't. Then they went and got some people, put blades up to their throat, guns in their face, and was like, "Now you gonna work for us." Fought amongst themselves after they already fought against the place they came from. Went against everybody everywhere just to let them know we here. And now we inhabit so much of the world. Like our military strength, our military might, our prowess, the fear that we garner, the anger and anguish that we have established around the world, right? And now you think all of a sudden, because we talking about it's unfair, that they just gonna stop. Nah, they ready to shed blood, and they showed it. They had a full-on operation ready to execute. And in this moment, we got to be very mindful, because if we're gonna make enemies, then you got to be prepared to go to war. And to me, I ain't trying to see it happen. I still think there's a conversation to be had where rational minds can come together and create something better, right? Everybody want to lose it, but they don't really want to lose it. They just want to keep what they got. They just want to keep it together. They want to protect what they have. They don't want to lose what they got so far. Everybody wants to grow, and there's more than enough space. But if we keep on with the mentality that, oh, we can't, or we can't include other conversations or people who may see things in an innovative approach, right? Like I thought of in that moment, Pharrell did an interview and they asked him, "Oh, what would you ask Elon, or what would you ask him?" Like, and he was like, "I want his mind to focus on the problems of the world. I don't need a mechanic to figure out what to do with people. I need people who've been spending their time on hearts and minds to come together, to educate those, to inform those, and empower those to make better decisions. I don't need Elon. Elon, thank you. You making rockets, you making electric cars, but I don't need your expertise." And I know he probably would be better served and would be more passionate to continue in his fashion to do what he's doing. But I have to, let my people know, the people who speak for me, because I look at Pharrell, I look at Killer Mike, I look at all these people, and sometimes they're right on, and sometimes they off. And in this moment, I want people to really think critically about the idea of thinking some billionaire who's a genius in this one regard is going to be the one to solve the problem. They're not there to solve those problems. We have people who are very educated and very well versed, but oftentimes go unheard because we categorize them as not being beneficial based off of the simple fact they're not a billionaire, right? We put so much stake, but look where that's got us. Look at where we at, right? We're finding every word, every means to convince ourselves that these rich people who have an incredible, unmeasurable amount of wealth are going to fix our problems when they don't care about our problems. The problems they care
And it's
about,
obvious.
I mean,
Go ahead.
look, I'm just saying, fossil fuels, it's a problem. I get it, right? Being able to have the ability to stay connected and get what you need with the ease and access of just a push of the button on your phone, I get it. But that's as far as it goes. That's as far as it reaches. That ain't gonna solve who gonna eat tonight.
Just by them being billionaires, it's obvious, like the way that they think, right, has to do with hoarding, right? Not just profit, right? It's not just residual, right? Profit or revenue, right? It's not just, multiple streams of income, right? At some point, they're keeping, right, a lot, right? It's like, it's not just an incremental profit over time. It's also an incremental saving. Like, I'm just going to get more. I'm just going to get more. It's like, it's not just more profit. It's like more hoarding, right? It takes, like, you have to hold on to so much just to be a billionaire, right? And then to be, what is it, 200 something $billion, right? It's insane amount of money, $700 billion. Like, you have to like hoard so much money just to be in that space. And like if their mindset is to profit and hoard, then there's going to be people left out every time. And it's like you said, it's like if that like if that empathy is not there, then like they can't see the world the way people who are hurting see the world. Like there's no way. And if you're gonna like, it doesn't make sense to putting somebody in charge who doesn't think about people who are hurting to then bring them in so they can hire people who think about it. Why don't you just start with the people who think about it and let them make decisions?
I mean, you know, people in their egos. You know what I mean, we got who is the Speaker of the House living out of San Francisco Pacific Heights, married to somebody who has private interests in all the tech companies and a lot of companies making millions of dollars. How are you gonna speak for the people? How are you? Nothing against who you are as an individual. I'm saying, do you not see the conflict of interest that you inhabit by being in the position that you in? We're gonna go and we're gonna have Mark Zuckerberg come up, even though I benefit from all his doing, right? We're going to question him, but I benefit. My house is paid for off the back of what he going to do. Now, me in the
So
position I'm in, my house ain't paid for. I'm literally trying to just save money to hopefully hit a windfall one day where I can be in a position. But then if I'm ever a public service, if I'm a public servant, I'm here as a appointed figure by the public. I need to disclose and keep it at the forefront and as a reminder to you why I probably shouldn't be here, right?
I shouldn't be asking these questions because I'm likely going to make sure that my house stays paid for off of instinct. I'm not going to do nothing to jeopardize my own well-being asking these questions
I mean, come
because
on.
that makes no sense. I'm not going to put myself in jail trying to
I'm not gonna
trying
put
to
myself
indict
in
this
jail.
man.
I'm not gonna put myself in jail. I'm not gonna put myself in hell, right? I'm not gonna sit up here and willingly give up what my fortune is or how I got my fortune, right? And the thing is, most people will never understand the technicality or the experience of what it means to like, I'm gonna invest money in a company and I'm gonna try and benefit from it, right? Like you're right. Like there's a point when it's like I have more than enough. And now instead of being able to share it with those that may need it or being able to give the tools to help people access it that's in some capacity, I'm just gonna keep it for myself. I'm gonna just keep it guarded behind my gate, right? And it's like to me, I'm operating differently moving forward, right? This year 2020 woke me up. 2021, I'm awake still, right? I was shook. I was put in a position where I seen things and I was like, my people ready. My people ready this year. My people ready right now. I gotta get active. And then what happened? They found ways to manipulate and do their dance and be like, nah, 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 nah. Right here we are, 2021. They hit the nah, 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 nah. They busted it. They busted wide open. They busted so hard they got busted. Now we sitting here, we're looking at we're looking at the ramifications of that, and we have to now look at on both sides of the aisle, as they say, to hold both sides accountable so we don't get the wrong people saying the wrong things to further division because they profit from it. Right? The people united and we're the United States. Yet we seem so divided. And why is that? Because people continue to perpetuate a division. I'm not for it. I can be wrong and I can accept you if you're wrong. I might not agree with you all the time, but I want to understand why you feel the way you feel and why you stand on what you stand on. Because I feel like if we talk, if we have a conversation and we get to know each other,
Right.
we're probably going to agree on a lot. But if we keep on yelling at each other, like I seen how they assaulted one of the representatives and they was like, you're the problem. You're the problem. And it's like, who are you? Like one of the dudes was like, who are you? And the guy's like, who am I? I'm me. And it's like, he says it right back, who are you? And he's like, I'm me. And I'm like, okay, so where are we going with this? How are we building any growth? Right? Like, okay, we got Lacey. Yes, it's crazy how our culture idolizes billionaires, even though they are just hoarders. I mean, and the thing is, it's because of how it is. I'm gonna keep it real, right? Let me tangent. My mama was a hoarder, not a billionaire. She was a hoarder. So when you walk in the house and you see the pile and you're like, why we got this pile? Because we live in a hoarding environment. Now, when you go to one of their houses, they got many houses. So they hoard the houses. So it's one of those things where it's like, you don't even think about it the same way because it don't even appear the same way. It's like, you hoarding houses? How you hoarding houses? Because I'm here in this one position right now. I'm in LA and I got one in Texas, one in New York, one in Florida, one in France, one in, all over the
Hoarding.
place. And guess who's in there? No one. Ain't nothing in there. Just furniture.
I can only
Like,
live in one place, but I
can
can
only
live in one place at different times.
I can only be in one place, right? Like, okay.
I can only wear one pair of shoes.
I mean, come on, man, be
but
careful.
Maybe I need 50.
I mean, man, be careful, right? Be careful.
I mean, because I just know what it is to see that way. But like you said, like I don't even see it as, oh man, maybe I need 10 houses in 10 different countries, not just different cities. Maybe I need 10 houses per country. Just in case I want to be on, like, I need a house on each side of Costa Rica, just in case I want to be in a different body of water. Yeah.
I'm hoarding on another level. I'm hoarding on the championship edition level, right? I'm hoarding on a different frequency, right? Like, what edition is this? Championship Super Turbo Edition. Like, come on.
Right.
We've been here.
Right. Tournament edition for real. Like, I need 5 $250,000 cars, even though they each only got one steering wheel. Well, this one got 2 steering wheels, but I can only drive one car at a time.
And again, it's a trip because it's like, it's not to sit there and belittle their own struggles, because there's obviously a struggle somewhere in there, right? There's a struggle somewhere in there that either you didn't have enough, or there was scarcity, or there was fear, or there was a sense of like, I wasn't good enough, right? I needed to be better, right? To the point now I'm competing against the stars for just numerical value, right? I'm competing with quantum physics just for the numerical like ability of having an excessive amount of digits associated with my name, right? Like, there is something so far profound about it that, to me, we all are on the spectrum. It just depends on what part of the spectrum you decide to occupy that day. Some people just don't move. Right. Some people go to other ends. And for me, it's my hope that we can start to see deeper through that, to understand deeper inside of that. Because, I mean, come on, like, where we at in the world? Like, what we doing? Like, we losing people in every which way, whether we losing their mind or whether we losing them, right? And I think in this moment in time where we see this crazy violent act and we see this kind of political awareness and this political activity going on, we got to be very clear of who's our leaders. We got to be very clear of what they're asking and what they're saying, right? When I got somebody from San Francisco who I should feel proud about being at the Capitol represented for me, and I look deeper and I read deeper and I do my research and I realize, you don't understand my pain. You don't understand my struggle. How could you ever represent me? You got more in common with, I'm not going to say they're the enemy, but they're the minority of a minority that has so much influence and power. How could they ever be a minority, right? They the minority that got the majority of money, right? Where they do that at, right? What type of maniac stuff do I got to get involved with to get my money up to that level where I'm unchallenged, unopposed, and don't got to worry about none of this? Because that's how you making me feel. You're going to make me detached just by getting this money. And it ain't the love of money that's going to make me this way. It's the love of freedom and the lack of me wanting to empathize with the struggle that y'all have created for me. Right? Think about that, right? Y'all created a struggle for me. And now I'm like, I'm ready to let it go. I'm ready to get up out of it. Forget y'all. I'm going to get rich. And y'all going to have to deal with all this. Y'all figure out what to do. Let me be a part of the problem, because the problem ain't going to affect me. I'm going to be in my bubble. And when Elon say the shuttle ready, I'm out. I'm going to Mars.
Take my money.
Take my money. I'm living on Mars.
Y'all figure it out for yourselves down there.
That or the disclosure of alien information July 8th, 2021. I mean, whichever comes first, we just going to see what happens. It's in the COVID bill. Look, it's in the COVID bill. People, it's in the COVID bill.
You're allowed to leave.
I mean, like what we you know, but for you, like, right, being that we all growing and we're trying to make things happen, do you have a plan for yourself when you encompass a level of wealth? Do you have a plan of what to do with that wealth and what you would want to see, right? Or would it be a thing where it's like, because you've attained the wealth, maybe you should share and give maybe insight or information over the money? Or maybe it's about sharing leadership because you're a leader in your own right because you got the money. Like, what is your perspective?
Yeah, my thing is always like, how can I like incubate and nurture the folks around me, like to lift them up? Like, what does that look like? It's like, how can I let them see that they shouldn't miss out on opportunities in life because of a tool that's missing, right? You shouldn't miss out on a whole experience in life just because the money's not there. Because that's what every inner city youth child is going through for the most part. It's like they're missing out on opportunities because, right, there are folks in their city who are saying the money's not there for these kids, right? The money's not there in education, right? The money is not there in social work and programs, right? The money's not there for their teachers, right? The money's not there for the arts. And when we say the money is not there, we're saying that there's something that's more important in their growth, and that means there's something more important than our future. Um, it's for something more important in the young minds. And my thing is always like, my wealth is not limited to my money, right? If I have a wealth of energy, if I have a wealth of time, if I have an abundance of these things, right, it's for me to share. Um, that's like my motivation for being here, with this podcast in the first place. Like, if I have extra that I don't need or that someone else can use, then I'm gonna try to pass it on. Um, and that's my focus all the time, in my career, um, and connections and bonds, with people and interactions with people. My thing is like, if somebody asks me if you know if they can have a ride somewhere, right, I'm gonna look at the space in my car and the time I have, right, and if I have both those things, then the answer is likely a yes. Right, because that's my the wealth that the abundance that I have, even in a small amount, even if it's just like a ride up the hill, and it's an inconvenience, or a ride, down the street. And my thing is always, if I see people as family, then when I help them, it's not an inconvenience. Um, and so I try to do that as much as I can. The same way I got my mama a TV. It's like, if I have extra, right, then it's not something somebody got to ask for. It's just a matter of the opportunity and the right format to share with them. And sometimes that format looks like cash, and sometimes that format looks like an opportunity or a program that we put together. Like, if we can pay somebody to create the curriculum in a program that will help people level up, then we do it, right? It's like corporations, last year missing out on opportunity to like get federal funding, or state funding, and put together a K through 12 like curriculum for at home, right? Google could have did that in their sleep. They could have done that in their sleep. It's like, oh, let me just log onto my Gmail and start school with some interactive stuff that will keep me engaged while my parents go to work, or my parents do work from home in the other room. Like, California could have done that, in 3 months. and had folks ready for September, August semester. They could have done that. But then they like the money's not there. Right. Well, then where's it tied up? Well, you had all this money to give to inmates who's unemployed in other states. Just all of a sudden, you just got the money to give. Okay, well, why do you need so much in unemployment for a rainy day, but you ain't got a couple $1 million, a few $1 million to give to a corporation to do a umbrella education in an emergency? That's my thing. It's like if I got it and I can like, yeah, if I got it extra, then it's meant for me to share. Cause like I can only eat off one plate. I mean, but they say, well, you need multiple things or whatever. Well, if I have an extra plate, because I often buy 2-3 plates, especially in the pandemic, to go plates, I'll get 3. But if I see somebody, if I'm driving, I see somebody who asking for something, I'll be like, man, I got this plate for a reason. Like, take this. You want some pho? Like, I got 2 of them. Yeah, I was gonna eat both, but I was supposed to drive by you.
Your caloric intake is on another level, so it makes sense, right? You taking only what you need and what you just so happen to need, right? Some of us are built like a moped. Some of us are built like an 18-wheeler, right? You take the fuel you need as you go, right? And you bring up a lot of good points, but I just wanted to say the reason why Google didn't have the money is because they wasted all of it on Stadia. The Google Stadia is a platform that Google decided to have that's a video game console that nobody bought. And they put all their money in that. I mean, hey, just had to hit it one time. They're still investing money in it because they're trying to get these like exclusives for like this is all very people like, what are you talking about video games all of a sudden? Because you see where the money's going, you understand, right? They had a losing investment. They could have invested in the people, which would have been a winning investment that would have produced fruit for 20, 30, 40 years, but they didn't see it that way, right? They didn't want to create the global association of Google being a saviorship brand of like, we're involved in helping the community and helping the world. And we're going to do it by taking Khan Academy or taking whatever resources we have like YouTube and all of our social media platforms that we have like Google Hangouts and Google Talk and all these different things. And now we're going to gear it towards the education system. Well, we might have an exorbitant amount of money, but we ain't going to focus on that.
They could have adopted the education system of California and streamlined they employees like with their own curriculum. Like you could say, well, if you want your employees to know this, you could just write the curriculum on what they learning, and you could just streamline your employees.
Like
start them at
you could make the most efficient and proficient employees if you wanted to, right?
At 16, 18 years old, they could be working for you while they're going to school. You could start a university if you wanted to, and pay them the least amount.
Yeah. Lease them out to help develop around the world, right? We're going to help develop infrastructures around the world because this ain't going nowhere. The internet ain't going nowhere. The technology ain't going nowhere. And it's of utmost importance and need right now. So yeah, right? Facebook, Google, Apple, all of you wonderful tech companies who have all this exorbitant amount of influence, power, and ability. You just, again, I get it. You have money and you wanted to focus on what you wanted to focus on. And, when you talked about having it and being able to give it, like this is where I go to my insane idea 732, right? My insane idea 732, when you have an exorbitant amount of wealth, is to go into every, or maybe not every, but you find a city, you go into the most impoverished neighborhoods that are struggling economically.
You might have to duck when you go to some cities.
I mean, yeah. Now you ain't no. Now when you the wealthiest of the wealthiest, you come in with a focus and an approach. Ain't nobody gonna mess with you, but they gonna wonder who are you, right? You
True.
approach 10 families in each area, and what you do is you offer the parents jobs, and you tell them, "This is what I'm gonna do for you. You have children. I'm gonna pay for the child care, and I'm gonna help develop their education, right?" And what I need for you is to accept the offerings of what I'm going to give you, and you ain't got to worry, right? 10 families in these impoverished neighborhoods. And what you do is you say, I'm going to put them on a track to be able to repair the harm in the world. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach them two things, right? A skill on how to work with people and a skill on how to work with money, right? So what is one of the skills? You're going to be a therapist and you're going to know how to fundraise. You're going to know how to write grants, right? I'm going to pay for the best education for you to have tutors, support, resources. So when you are done, you're going to come back to your neighborhood and now you're going to be able to pay it forward, right? Because now you know how to work with people and you know how to work with money. And what you're going to do is you're going to start planning for a future that does not exist because you're going to create it and you're going to use it off of the backing of my wealth from my company, right? Imagine if Jeff Bezos did that. Right, he comes to the 100th point and he's like, I'm in a point and I want to meet with just families, right?
I'm in a point.
I'm gonna just come to the point, meet with families. I'm gonna talk to them and I'm gonna now hire you. You're gonna work for Amazon, full benefits, ain't gotta worry about nothing. I'm gonna give you a college fund, and from here on out, we're gonna select the schools and make sure that they have the transportation, the means, and all the support to make it through every year, every step of the way. And the only thing that I want you to learn is how to help people and get money. Maybe helping people means, you know what? I'm going to teach you a vital skill of communication. And then what I want you to do is understand finances and what it means to be an accountant. You're going to come back to your neighborhood. You're going to pass along those skills. Right. And you're going to have the backing of my company and support, because it ain't like I'm hurting. It ain't like I can't do it. Right. But what I'm going to need you to do is figure out, how do you leverage your skills and abilities to get wealth, or convince me to use my wealth to help create an infrastructure that is helping you. Right. Insane idea number 732. Right. I'm not saying do a bunch. I'm saying just get 10. Just go to one city. Right. And see what happens. See what happens. Let it be a lifetime experiment. Because what's happening and what I'm seeing, your wealth ain't going to die no time soon. Your wealth is not going to be diminished just because you decided to spend X amount of dollars on a family, right? It'll make up for itself, because the idea is, with that resource, that intervention, because that's the thing, it's an intervention, right? Everyone has the ability to do, but they need the intervention for someone to make them believe it. They need someone to intersect in their life to just say, you can do this. And now I'm going to hopefully give you the ability to believe in yourself so you can actually see it come true. Everyone has the ability, but not everyone receives the intervention, right? Everyone can, they just don't know it. And sometimes they know it, or they want to believe it, but they're not ready to believe it yet. So here we are, right? We got people with wealth who can give that resource, that energy, that time, but we don't have nobody even thinking of insane idea number 732, right?
That's a good number.
I'm just saying.
That's a good number, and the arithmetic is 12.
You feel me?
It's a complete number.
You know what I mean? It's 12 disciples, 12 zodiacs, 12 months, 12 hours split, double 24. Like, however you want to look at it, right?
7 days, 3 months, 3 months a season.
I'm just
2
saying.
times of the day. If you don't count afternoon.
4 seasons. You know what I'm saying?
AM, PM.
3 months each one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I think of that, and I think in a critical sense, because we're witnessing like this crazy divide in all these different ways of, like, again, like, I don't know, it's this crazy
communication breakdown.
Yeah.
It's just communication breakdown, right? Nah, right? Nelson's man, right? Is right. I'm a deflect how I'm hurting, right? To highlight your pain.
Yeah.
Right. Or your struggle. Pain. Right. Everybody look at what he going through. And no one takes him, and no one stops, like that episode when they go to Nelson's house and we see, how he's struggling.
I mean, that's real. That's a profound moment, right? Everybody hurting of something. Everybody hurting from something. It's just how they processing they hurt to get away from the harm, right? Like, how are they getting away from the harm, right? How are we being responsible and respectful to your harm, right? We're not. We're just gonna dig in. We're gonna shift the just whatever pain you in, we gonna make it even more. We're gonna amplify it, right? And my thing is, we all get caught up in the moment of comparison, or we all get caught up in the moment of like trying to say, well, what they got, what they do, what they did, and trying to say whether it's good or bad or whether it's right or wrong. I ain't concerned with that. Is it healthy for you? Is it sustainable? Right? I can't be the one to make the judgment call. I know what the law say and I know what the books say, right? But beyond that, for me, what's important is it healthy and sustainable for you? Because there's going to be harm if it's not. Someone's going to be impacted if it's not sustainable for you, when it halts, when it cuts off, right? And so if there's harm and you're in harm, someone's going to be feeling the type of way seeing you go through harm, right? And that's the thing. To me, I'm looking at it through that lens. So when I think of the billionaires, or I think of the crazy, selfish, white supremacist individual, I'm thinking about where's your harm at that's caused you to think that this is the proper outcome or the proper practice, because it's obvious it's not.
Right.
I mean,
Because right? The harm is really injustice, right? Because there was some cause, right, that allowed the harm, right? There's something that happened. There was something, right, where justice wasn't present, right, that allowed the harm to occur.
yeah.
And right, whether it was like somebody, right, not being taught properly how to engage with youth, right, or someone not being taught properly, or being neglected when it comes to engaging with different genders, um, or different sexual preferences, right? Like, or folks who are poverty stricken, neighborhoods that are poverty stricken, and right, like that harm is there, right, because of some injustice, right? And if the justice wasn't implemented, then the harm probably could have been prevented.
I mean, you're right. It's one of those things where, we trying to repair, restore, and minimize and reduce the harm.
Yeah.
Like
Yep. Right.
it's
If not prevented, right? Exactly. Repair.
yeah, like you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, if we could prevent it, we're gonna prevent it. And if we can't, let's repair it. Because yeah, it's just it's crazy to think like where we come from, the world we come from. Like, we come from a place, like, again, for those that know that have been listening, those that are just tuning in, right? We come from San Francisco, right? The city, right? We come from this place that most people think of Golden Gate, Steve McQueen, and like all this other Pier 39 and Clam for real. And the thing that, is different for me is that I don't know none of, I learned about that later, right? What I knew of the city is much different, right? And the thing that I'm saying is we come from a city where it's a lot of deceptiveness, right? It's deceptive in nature because when I think of the black community, I think of the 90s, right? And then I see what it is now, and it's still there, but it's holding on because it ain't what it used to be, right? And people may not understand what that means, but I'm going to try and give you insight, right? San Francisco being a major metropolitan area city that has acquired a level of wealth over the years because of its ability to be right there as a port city, but also next, it's right, Silicon Valley, right? And so, for me, I knew San Francisco as being diverse. I knew San Francisco as being Black, Latin, Asian. I knew San Francisco as being this place where working families were making a way. I knew this place as, where people, my family or myself or people next to me were going through poverty in different degrees and different, classism or classist ways, right? And when we deal with race, it was an intersectionality where you would deal with it, but it wouldn't be the same because everybody would have their thing, right? No one would be um, absolved or would be untouchable when it came to race, right? Everyone was gonna have they card pulled, or everybody was gonna have that moment where they knew it's because of how I look. Everybody was gonna have it, whether you was Samoan or whether you was Filipino. You was gonna have your moment under the sun in terms of feeling discrimination or prejudice, right? And it might be your own people, right? Just because you might be a little darker, you might be a little lighter, you might be a little taller, you might be a little shorter, you're going to feel it to some degree, right? And so to
From the north
me,
and from the south.
exactly. So to me, I'm looking at it through that lens and thinking about it through that lens. And as I grew older, I started to see how this game is played, where people have been manipulated into believing things that aren't true, where people have been set up to be thrown out. And now we're looking at it from this perspective of we've invested so much in being liberal and being forward thinking that we oftentimes don't challenge what is in front of us. We don't critically think about it because we think it's there to serve us and to be for us, when in reality, it's to serve someone else. It's to provide for someone else. Because my family was, impacted by the first .com boom. We had to leave a city, and I became a commuter child, right? And you start to realize the quality of life and what that means, and how money plays a factor and a role, but also how that systemically exists depending on the color of your skin and where you come from. When you black, you Latin. When you Asian, when you white, right? Everything in between, right? And so when I'm looking at it now and I'm seeing this world we live in, where white supremacy is, and always in existence, but it's at the forefront and the tip of tongues of everyone who has something to say about what they witnessed on January 6th. And when we look at the political changes that we're seeing in the shift, and when it comes to Democrat or Republicans, look, them names mean nothing to me. You all people at the end of the day, right? When I was going to school, right, I went to Thurgood Marshall, right? Thurgood Marshall being one of the Supreme Court justices, black man, right? That's what the school was named after. But we had a moment where there was a clash, right? Where there was this moment where power and authority came up against the people and the youth. And in that moment, when I'm witnessing my fellow students be harassed, when I see teachers being chased by police officers, and I'm seeing, my fellow student who's 14 years old being spoke to from a badge wearing officer in a way that is demeaning, harmful, and destructive, regardless of what the reason or the context was, I seen it as though this is the world as it exists, right? From here on out, I'm not a fool. I see it all, right? I was already on game because the drug dealer ran away, or the drug user, right? I was already hip to it because I was like, maybe I didn't get impacted by gun violence, but I knew people who were, right? Maybe it wasn't gun violence. Maybe it was just the selected health outcomes of diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, and kidney failure, and liver problems that exist within all my communities, right? Because when you start looking at the boxes and who's impacted most, well, you're going to start seeing a lot of that AA African American and or black, right? So you start to realize who's gaming you, who's trying to take advantage of you, who's trying to manipulate you. And for me, it became important to be a part of my community, support the community, because right now it's a global community. Right now it is a national community, and it is struggling.
Right.
So as a person who's been through their trauma, been through their harm, and processing and learning from it, and I'm still gonna have stuff pop up. I'm just trying to let people know, because of the conversations I've had one-on-one, that now I have the ability to broadcast and share on a larger frame. Wake up, people. Get woke. Not woke in the sense of staying awake for the sake of insomnia, but get your sleep when you need it, right? Get them 8 hours if you need 8, get them 7 if you need 7. Take them naps when you need to take naps. We all about the naps here on Lyrical Ones, right?
You know it.
So the thing is, right? Develop the discipline you need. Get the routine that's necessary. But at some point in those routines, at some point in that discipline, be careful in your approach to change. Be careful in your approach to what it is that you're asking and who's with you. Because oftentimes you'll see, as we're watching right now, those in power, those with a voice, those who we look up to, oftentimes may not be the ones, or they need to be challenged and reminded, brought back down to earth, humbled, and, hey, you represent us. Because I ain't rich. Don't get it twisted. These gold teeth, I went broke for these. You don't even know if these is foil or not, okay? They're going to run up on me one day and try and test them and be like, bro, you got 10 for. Hey, they made of brass if they made of brass. I just like the way my mouth shines, okay? But beyond that, beyond the glitz and beyond the mask, right? What I'm asking is for people to be careful in their approach to change,
Right.
because we are
Yeah.
witnessing right now, whether it's the FBI synchronicity and getting people caught up at the airport, or whether it's, the politicians who are coming into power. It's changes all around us. It's things all around us that are happening. And we have to be careful in how we approach them, because if we're not careful, things break down, things fall apart. And yeah, I mean, I
Things
ain't
fall
trying to see that.
apart.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. I mean, what else is going
It's
on in
right
the news?
there because it's right there because we the people, right, are the ones to make the changes, but only if we believe it and see ourselves as parts of a unit of a community and not individuals, right? We have to create that culture that to some degree doesn't exist except in smaller formats, right? We have to start and continue to say we, right, and repeat it and believe it and operate in that, because what has fallen apart is that, right? It's like that's where the disconnect is, the dismantling of we, right, has already reached its half-life. It's like we have to speak in that we, because it is falling apart, it has fallen apart, and we have to continue to like weave it back together with we.
You're right. It is
uh,
we, because it becomes you versus me if it ain't we.
and then we're disconnected.
Yeah, it reminds me of something I've seen recently. I won't say too many details, but I will go into what it was. Two individuals meet
I watched it.
who were once friends, right?
I know I watched it.
And in that moment, I was like, this is so poignant for the time. This is so
Right.
on point for what I just witnessed. Because
I'm just like you.
what I'm seeing, right? Exactly. What I'm seeing is I'm seeing the conflict of retribution, revenge, vengeance, what I want, what I need, when I feel like I'm owed. It's amplified in this moment, because when you're going after what you think you're owed, and you think that that person in front of you is the enemy, they see it the same exact way as you on the other end, right? And
Right.
what you realize, what's existing around you, what's happening around you, if you pay attention, if you listen to what's going on around you, that it ain't got nothing to do with the person in front of you. There's someone else involved.
Man.
There's someone else that has been pulling the strings of manipulation to put you two at odds, right? Because we are the same, but there's other hands involved that are orchestrating the events to really make you believe it's the person in front of you when it's not. It's the person you don't see. It's the person that you oftentimes will never get the chance to even hear. But if you pay enough attention, if you are close enough to hearing and have the ability to just tune in, you're going to realize who those people are, because they the ones that are going to speak vehemently day in, day out on your behalf, because you appointed them, right? But how many of them were appointed? How many of them were just chosen and continue to be chosen, right? Because when you sit in that seat and you faced with that person that you think is your enemy, you're going to realize they just like you. And I'm
and
just saying,
and
like,
what it is, it's oftentimes in our culture today is social media who's the enemy, right? It's these corporate voices, right, turning us against ourselves, right, turning us against even who we want to be and how we want to show up, like how we would prefer to show up and how we would prefer other people to show up, right, in our brokenheartedness and our loneliness and our longing to belong. It's corporate voices that are telling us that the person across from us is wrong and our enemy, and really Right. They're just like me. I'm just like them. Right. They're just like you. And they say that the closest, the closest you'll come to God on earth is the person across from you. And the corporate message says that God is somewhere far away, is not hands on, not involved, and that they look nothing. God looks nothing like you. God doesn't resemble you at all. You don't resemble God at all. You don't resemble like anything magical or mystical or divine. And your life is short and scarce and less than, and what you deserve can only be gotten by giving me money. What you need can only be acquired by giving me money. And whatever makes me money, whatever you click on, will get you closer to what you need to feel worthy. And really, it's the person you think is against you and your enemy who can remind you that you're worthy. If you would listen to them instead of talk at them and say, I need this or I need that, because that's what I'm owed, because that's what was taken from me. That's what I deserve, because I didn't get that, because I don't have that. I don't got what they got, or I don't have what so and so has, or I didn't have my time doing that. If you're not trying to give me that, like this link is, then you against me, because the link is trying to give it to me. The timeline is trying to give it to me. The feed is trying to give me what I need. And the person across from us is like, yeah, I need that too. But if we're not talking to each other about it, then we just clicking on links and scrolling. And we missing the opportunity to be we.
Starting right now, I'm organizing everyone. I'm organizing right now. Whoever's listening, reach out to me however you can find me in any capacity. If you got my email, email it. If you can hit me on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. If you on Facebook, search Sineo, Sineo, whatever the case may be. This is what I'm asking. Right? I want to know, when would you be comfortable, you, whoever you are listening, to take a week off together, a week off from all social media together. I'm gonna do it with you, but I want to know, when does it work for you, right? Let me know. I want to come to a consensus, and I want people to share that. I want people to ask people from here on out, when are you ready to take a week off? Right? This is all inspired from what Affluent just said, which triggered Denzel's quote when he said, "If you're not addicted, take a week off." Right? Because you're
And we
right.
go and we go take a week off, and we'll
We're
come
gonna
back
take
the
a week
following
off.
week.
Yeah, we'll exactly. We'll come back a following week. You pick the week. We're gonna stick to it. We're gonna all take it together. We're gonna say, you know what? We're gonna check off. Right? If we want to check in, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna text you. Right? If I need to make that connection, if I really need to make that human connection, that's what I'm gonna do. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a week off. I'm not gonna look, I'm not gonna click, I'm not gonna
We're gonna shut it
press
down.
on the screen. What I'm gonna
We
do is I'm gonna take a week off.
uninstall, disable,
Whatever you need to do, right? You ain't even,
silence,
if you got the
take
discipline to just
like
say, I'm
what
off.
if you just got the right, exactly, whatever it takes for you to be off. Let us know. You guys pick the day, what's convenient. It could be a holiday, it could be this, it could be that, whatever it is. We gonna take the most popular time, popular week.
Yeah, we're gonna come to a
So
consensus.
we can we get it to be at least this spring.
I mean, let's see what the people say. Let's see. I want to know
Let's see.
whether it's
Yeah,
one person or two,
it could be
500,
right.
whatever.
Whatever they say, whatever they summer, Christmas time, whatever it is, we'll schedule it out.
Right? You can get connected
Yeah.
on the Discord. You can get connected on Twitter through Lyrical Ones or Lyrical
Comment on the
Opposition.
Twitch, Lyrical
Comment, say
Opposition,
somewhere,
Facebook.
say, I want to take a week off, whatever you do, put week off, right? Somebody gonna see it, and we're gonna organize this together. We're gonna pull people into the movement of a week off, because I think it's important.
Hashtag LO week off.
Yep, hashtag LO week off. Hashtag LO week off. That's what it's gonna be. Hashtag LO week off. Because I think it's time that we, lyrical opposition fashion, right? We're going to use our words to oppose the power structures that are in place to try and restrict us, limit us, and control us. And I think it's important for us to challenge that, right? Imagine the world just saying for a week, we're not going to use your platforms. Imagine hashtag LO week off. Imagine what that would do to the billionaires and the investors. Imagine the panic. Imagine if what that could do to the stock market, right? Like, imagine what that could do for so many who are like depending on us to just be on there, right? No one's made any activity or said anything on Twitter for a week, and Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok. What is going on? LO week off. I want to know when the people would do it, whether it's the spring, whether it's the summer, whether it's this year, whether it's next year. I want you to tell people, are you willing to take a week off? Ask people. Just ask them, right? Get connected to the Discord community right now. Okay. If you want to get to this, if you want to become a part of or get connected to the Discord community, you can call, text 415-903-7699. Again, text 415-903-7699, right? Text the Discord, LO week off, right? Let's challenge the system. Let's see what we could do when we come together. LO week off, because I think like it hit me like you said it, like, right? Like, we are the same. So what happens when we stop yelling at each other in the echo chamber and just give it some silence, right? Let it settle on that. Let it just rest. No activity. Take a week off. If you need to log out, log out. If you need to uninstall, uninstall, but you stay away, right? And I'm willing to let the people, whoever the people are, dictate that. And we just try it every year, a week off, right? People always talk about, now we're going to do it together. You're not going to do it alone. You're going to do it, and you're going to know that I'm doing it with you.
Yep.
So
we'll set the date, and we'll check back in and tap back in the following week and see how it affected us. We'll come back with some numbers on how it affected things around us, and what likely what we'll find out is, right, the world still turns, but we change as that turning happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
We turn out different.
I ain't gonna talk about discipline, and I ain't gonna be about it, right? It's gonna take discipline to have a week off for myself. Like, let me not release something. Let me not put out something. But I'm willing, right? Let me work with you, whoever you are,
to be we,
and we can do it together, right?
So we can be we.
Yeah, so we can be we. Because I mean, I saw about it like, man, we can do this. We can come together. I mean, it's important right now for it to be some us in this situation. I mean, you got anything for the people right now? Affluent, you got anything for these people?
Let's be us. We have the opportunity all the time, right? All the time to not go against, and invite more love to the community, right? To let more in. And it's hard to comprehend sometimes, because we always think, if I let more in, that means I got to give more. We always think, oh, well, if I let more in, then it's going to more being asked of me, and I may be at my wits' end from any day of the week I might be at my wits end. Maybe the whole week sometimes I'm at my wits end, especially in the pandemic. Maybe I feel like I'm always drained. I never got nothing left for nobody. And now letting somebody in is going to take from me. And often that's not the way it goes. Like having 10 men on the field makes it hard to play the game. Having that 11th person makes a difference. Playing the game with 4 people on the basketball court is hard to maintain. Same thing on the soccer field. It's hard when you're missing one. It means everybody's got to work a little bit more and do a little bit extra. It's not when you add somebody, they're not taking from you. But that's again, it's like the standards that we set and the standards that we allow on what that means in community. If we foster a community of giving, then nobody's losing out when we come together.
That's right.
And I think when we go into social media and what's happening in social media is folks are not giving. Some people are, some people aren't. Some people are just taking, like even just taking people's opportunity to express themselves by interjecting and policing the way they express love or express what's happening in their relationship just through a comment. Say, you ain't doing this right, you ain't doing that right, or I would have done this, or show me this, or do this. A lot of times folks is trying to take people's energy, and that's not community. That's why it's rarely called community in social media. They rarely show up in the same positive light.
I mean,
So yeah,
it'd be out of control. Talk about a community. It'd be off the what do y'all do? What? How? I mean, no shame. Do what you do, but are you harming people? Are you in harm? Are you trying to process the harm you going through? Because my goodness, what is happening? What in the world are y'all thinking? Because I
like
can't see it.
some folks will try to iron out their own wrinkles by putting a hot metal on somebody else's shirt.
For it, let me iron out you.
Let me do this. Let me get you. No, get you. Look at you. Look at your
Get
stuff.
you. How do you?
Handle
Because I'm
you.
man. What they
And
not
and and that's the thing. It's like if we're not in community, then all we're doing is handling ourselves and not listening to each other. And when we feel we need to take from someone else, right, to interact, right, then that's not community.
I mean, at least I don't know. I don't. Maybe it's community for some, but
Maybe
you know, in terms of what I've
it
seen,
sounds like. I mean, it's like
ah,
gang mentality.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
they be in community taking from each other and doing it for a
uh,
long time.
yeah. I don't know. I can't either one.
What that's the thing, right? Is and it shows up in different ways, and that's like, I you gotta speak from your experience.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
let's
thing
speak.
is that most people aren't even in tune with the experience. They trying to avoid it.
Now we done.
Like,
Now we done. You said it.
get in tune. It's okay. We all went through some. We going through some. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm not saying it as like to minimize it. I'm saying it because I need you to go through it because I went through it, and we'll be better for it once we can reflect on it and learn from it, so we can support others not having to go through it. And I get if you're not ready yet, but I'm saying I appreciate it if you do. I would be thankful to you if you did it. If you just accepted where you were at, if you owned it, because it wasn't. Look, the only thing you destined is how you start. The only thing you destine is how you start. Everything else after that, I'm telling you right now in this moment, it's up to you. You didn't get to pick who your family was. You didn't get to pick where you was born at. You had no way of negotiating or being able to demand or being able to say what were the terms of your birth. You didn't get to pick any of it. But if you can hear this, I don't care how old you are, from here on out, whether it's if it's a an inch or a centimeter a day, you get to determine whether it's the most minuscule, incremental, smallest amount from this point forward, no matter how insignificant it may seem. You have the ability to set things in motion how you see fit. If you can hear me, I'm keeping it real. I wish somebody would have told me, because when I found out, I ain't saying it was too late, but it would have helped me out a little bit earlier. Just a little bit,
Yeah.
a whole lot, a little bit. I'm talking about like a good decade and a half or something. You hear me?
Yeah. For real.
I'm just saying.
And I think I learned a lot of that through exercise. Um, especially with yoga, um, that I get to choose. But it starts with accepting where I started. Uh, but I get to choose where I go from there. I get to choose, right? Like I can't choose how I wake up, but I can choose how I go to bed each day. Right.
True.
So I can choose how I go to bed each day. Everything going leading up to going to sleep at night. I get to choose all of that. And then whenever I wake up, I get to choose again. But I gotta accept that starting line, whatever it is. If I wake up because I slept on my shoulder wrong, or I slept with my neck crooked, or I woke up early, woke up late, I get to choose, where I sleep to some degree. Um, and if I got a problem with where I'm sleeping, right, I can make choices to change that. Like I know folks who've gone from homeless to, garage, having a garage, you know, beneath them in a home, and they had to work for it and they had to make some choices. But it started with accepting that, I'm unhoused and it's my choice.
Man,
And because
say
you
that.
somebody you when it's hard, you feel like it's not your choice. You feel like it's not up to you. When it's overwhelming, you feel like it's not up to you. When it don't make sense, you feel like it's not up to you. When you done failed so many times making your choices and it was up to you and you tried and it didn't turn out the way you expected or you wanted or you felt you needed, and it was up to you, it's still up to you, and you get to try again. And it's okay when you misstep and make a mistake, but it's still up to you to go back at it, in the same way or a different way. Learn from it, and it's up to you to see yourself out of it every time. But no race happens without a starting line. There's some starting point somewhere, and if we can tune in and say, this is where I'm starting, right? That's the beginning of making a choice, right? It's like discipline is that. It's not saying yes all the time or saying no all the time, or saying no when you think you're supposed to say yes, or saying yes when you think you're supposed to say no. Discipline is just making a choice when you have a chance to do so. Discipline is saying, oh, I can choose right now, and being intentional about that choice and say, yes, I'm gonna do that, or no, I'm not gonna do that. That's the discipline, and and that building that consistency and making a choice. And sometimes we'd be like, oh man, it's too much, I can't choose, and it's overwhelmed me. Like whatever happens, happens. It's over my head. It's out of my hands now. Nah, but it could be a choice still. You could choose to say, well, I'm gonna try this, and even if it's too much for me, Maybe I did. Maybe I'll do. Maybe I'll get half done. Maybe I'll get halfway. Maybe I'll get close to the top. Maybe I'll just barely make it past where I want it to be. Maybe I'll just barely, by the skin of my teeth, get it right, or I'll at least I'll get it wrong. But I'll choose to try or not try, and I'll choose and I'll say yes or say no, and I get to choose again the next step after that. I think that's what discipline is for me. It's like, yeah, just the just choice. You can, and it starts with believing you can. And yeah, Cindy, I think I needed to hear that as early as possible too. And I'm glad. I think I heard it. I started practicing yoga 10 years ago. It would be 11 years in a few months. And it's wild, but like acceptance, like so much. I just feel like I was out of control, and all I could do was respond. And when you're practicing yoga, it's just a practice of not responding to whatever feelings you're feeling, but accepting them. Because sometimes they're intense, sometimes you feel like they're burning, sometimes you feel like they hurt, sometimes they feel awkward or funny style, or weird postures. And instead of reacting to it, you just like, okay, I'm in this. Like, what is happening to me in this this time, this space, this posture, this feeling? Beyond, what else can I feel in this? What else can I perceive and process? And besides this initial thing and responding to that, there are 20 other things maybe happening to me that I don't even know because I react to the first thing I feel. And it became about just accepting as much of myself as I could, so then I can make a choice on where to go next.
And that ain't to minimize any tragedies that will happen. That's not to minimize the random events of life that are really beyond our control, right? That's not to dismiss it, to try and trivialize it. And it's not to do that at all. Like, those things do happen. They can happen. There's a lot of things that don't got no name but can find you. And I'm not trying to take away from that at all. But I am saying, while you got it, while you have this moment of life, while it's yours, you can get on your way. It may not be immediate, it may not be fast, it may not be swift, but you can definitely start. And so, I just feel like yes, it's information we all would benefit from learning earlier in life at some point, right? Could have been better if I was 6. You do not need to destroy the boxes to your Nintendo games because you may miss them one day. You have a choice to not destroy it. You can actually engage your excitement and not destroy it, because you ain't going to get a lot for a long time because you're a child. You stupid child. Could have
No,
benefited.
yeah, it's not a stupid child.
I was dumb. I didn't know. I was dumb. I could admit it. I
That's
could see.
that.
Look,
Not knowing and dumb is not the same thing.
okay, you're right. You're right. Not knowing and dumb is you're right. Because dumb is just you know better, but you decide to do it anyway, even when those consequences was coming. And in this instance, I was just didn't know. I was oblivious. I was ignorant. I was literally didn't have any formulation or thought to even what was the consequence or the outcome. So that much is true. But to know that there's a choice to be made, that I could make a choice, would have benefited me in making a better informed decision, to maybe realizing what this could like what could this really imply. So you're right. You're right, stupid child. But anyways, the thing is, right, it's true. Like, everyone, like, I'm just saying, like, whatever the situation is, maybe there's some existential thing you can't change, but there are things in between you and that you can change, right? And for me,
Yeah,
I'm saying this week is it's engaging my mindset, right? There are things that I don't like that I have to deal with, or there's things that I have to incur because I made certain choices, and that's where I'm at, right? AKA working a 9 to 5. So that means I gotta sometimes burn the what they call the midnight oil. So, you got to do that when you're in my position where it's like, okay, you're gonna have to work a little harder, a little longer. You're gonna have to put in more time because there were moments maybe things could have went differently, but you didn't make an informed decision, or you didn't think you had a choice in the matter to do something differently. So now you're in this position that you have to deal with the consequences of those actions. I'm accepting that. I'm owning that. In this moment forward, I am working towards a day where it's me working for me and not me working for them. Right? That's me saying the choices I'm making, me making decisions, and me being proactive in what that's going to look like. So I can be responsible and functional, but ever so often working towards the goal of change. Choices,
Yeah.
decisions.
That reminds me of like having a paper bag lunch and choosing how I opened and closed that paper bag lunch and the order in which I loaded things, my lunch into that paper bag. Because if I put them in the wrong order, my food was gonna get smashed. And if I if I rolled it up or I folded it up, folded it close, if I ripped it open, if I sealed it, if I folded it at the corners, that was all gonna say because I might have to reuse that bag that day or that week. I might have to bring that bag home, and sometimes I had to take care of that paper bag because I was getting another paper bag back, but I I was oblivious, right? I didn't know, what the paper bag could be for me, in its entire like lifetime of use. Like I didn't know how many times I could reuse that paper bag. Because if I didn't have a paper bag, then that means I had to put it in my food in my backpack for the rest of the week. You know, yeah. So it's like, I wasn't responsible for getting the paper bag, right? That was out of my control. But when I got it, right, then I had the opportunity to choose. Um, like when my dad passed, like, I couldn't do anything about that, and at one point, all I thought I could do was, follow him wherever he was going. And I thought that was my only choice, my only option, my only reaction to his transition was to transition in the same way. And right, again, not knowing what the rest of that meant. And this year, I turned the age that he was when he passed away. Um, and it's wild, to come into that, and and figure out, what other choices can I make, you know what other opportunities are there, what other, moments present themselves for me to then make choices, according again to, those goals and dreams, right? How do I stay focused on the goal, um, by choice, right? Not just in thought, but in my choice, and not just in what I can't control, but also what in the things that I can control. Like, what does it look like to make the choice toward the goal, in the midst of the weather? Like, how do I get where I'm going, regardless of what the weather is? Okay, I think that's all I want to say to the people.
Affluent, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. You
Thank you,
pretty much
brother.
said it best. Oh man, do what I can, do what I can. But as
Sometimes
we
you do
like to
more than what you can. Plus ultra.
plus ultra. I mean, you got to serve with a smile.
I
So,
hear.
you know what I'm saying? So, as we like to do at this time, as per usual, hopefully,
I never heard that part. I didn't hear. I never heard that layer before. My earphones working good. One. It's a good life. What a time to be alive.
After the party is the after party. I mean,
You know, what's up to everybody watching? We want to thank y'all for being here, hanging out.
For real.
You know, we serious about that week off, that hashtag LOWEEKOFF.
We are.
We will look at the numbers. We hope to hear from you guys. The show is actually over, and for anybody still on and tuning in, we thank y'all for being here. This is usually our post show where we talk about what happened in the show.